Hello, this is François Le Goff from the European Chemicals Agency, and today I will start presenting the webinar on the latest release of Euclid version 5.1.2 that happened in October 2020. This is the agenda. We'll start with the introduction to the highlights of this October 2020 release. I will talk about the format changes that are included in this release, and I will also say some words about the transition to the web interface. And then my colleagues Mark Roberts and Tommy Hag will continue with this webinar presentation. The day of the webinar, the Q&A session is organized using Slido. You see the hashtag here that you can enter on the Slido website. This Slido session will last until 5 p.m. on the webinar day, and we will answer your questions during the day. This recording will be available on the Euclid 6 website, together with the presentation and a list of questions and answers. You see the link here on this slide. So let's go to the content of this webinar and some words on the October 2020 Euclid release. I'll start with the news alert that has been published on the 28th of October on the Euclid website. You can see the main items included in this Euclid release, like the format update to support different regulations. It's the same way for all October releases of Euclid. We do format changes, and this is why we call it a major release of Euclid. We have also included in this release new features on the web interface. And we are also moving towards this web interface in general, and I will talk about this. You'll find more information and more details in the release notes available on the Euclid 6 website. Some additional information before we start with the format changes in this release. I wanted to talk about the migration, and this is done in the same way as with previous Euclid releases, which means that there is a forward migration that allows you to import any Euclid 6 files and even Euclid 5.6 files to this latest release of Euclid. So all the information you have on your drive or in your folders can be imported successfully into this version Euclid 6.5. We have also maintained the backward migration. So in case you need to exchange datasets with another Euclid users who still has Euclid 6.4. This is still a possibility. Just go to the advanced export options for your dataset and choose to export in the previous major version. Really quickly, some information on the validation assistant. You will see that in this release, small updates were made in the area of the REACH regulation. New rules have been implemented for poison centers. We have updated the configuration of the validation assistant for Australia, and we have also developed the first set of rules for European plant protection products. Still for plant protection products, you will see that the dissemination preview that is allowing the filtering of dossiers has been extended to cover pesticides dossiers. And this is a prototype for the time being that will be further refined in the future. Finally, it's important to see that there were changes done in some web services offered by Euclid. And the most important one is the replacement of the web services for submission types by a new one that provides similar information, which is now called working context. Let's move to the format changes in the next slides. As I said, each October release of Euclid includes format changes, and the new format has been published at the same time as the Euclid application on the 28th of October. So if you go to the format page on the Euclid 6 website, you will see all the information. The package includes the list of all Euclid fields, the Euclid documents in Word format and XSD format. You will also find an Excel file comparing this new format with the previous version of the format. The migration rules to go from Euclid 6.4 to Euclid 6.5, and also for your information, the dynamic content rules that have been implemented in some of the Euclid documents. Just a reminder, the way the format of Euclid is structured is the following. On the left side of the screen, you can see that some parts of the format of Euclid are harmonized at an international level. These are the so-called OECD harmonized templates, and also other Euclid documents that are used by all Euclid users. Then this format is extended to cover the needs of additional regulations. You can see on the right side at the European level, but also for Australia and New Zealand. In the next slides, I will go through the changes or the main changes that are happening in the different areas of the format. And I will start with the changes made to the OECD harmonized. Following the latest changes that have been accepted at the OECD level, we have done a maintenance update of all OECD harmonized templates to align all the harmonized templates where needed. Important to note as well is the availability of a new template to store information about studies done on phototoxicity in vitro. And then you will see on this slide a list of the templates that have been more largely modified in this release. So you can see for example, the basic toxicokinetics template, and the skin sensitization, the residues in crops and in rotational crops, or also changes done in order to implement the latest version of the intermediate effects reporting used to report mechanistic information. Moving on to another part of the Euclid harmonized template, you will see that we have extended the list of regulatory purposes that can be used in flags provided in Euclid. So now you can flag information relevant for Australia, EU BPR, and New Zealand. Looking at the category, in previous versions, categories were only possible to be made of substances, and now this has been extended to include mixtures as well. About the literature references, there are new fields have been added. You have the possibility to attach documents, multiple documents at this level now, and you can also provide study identifiers in a repeatable block. Worth noting as well are the changes made at the reference substance level, where fields have been reorganized to clarify the information, which led to change of path that are important to take into account in case you are using this information. One important change included in this release as well is the adaptation of the GHS document that is used to store classification and labeling information. This document has been updated to take into account the latest updates of the CLP regulation at the European level, but also the latest revision 8 of the globally harmonized system for classification and labeling developed by the United Nations. Some examples of these changes are the new fields for chemicals under pressure, the introduction of category 1 for reproductive toxicity, germ cell mutagenicity, and carcinogenicity. We have also structured some fields to provide information of affected system and organs. Some additional changes were made in order also to align the different phrases that are used in different fields of the document. Continuing with the changes made at the Euclid format level, I would like to mention the changes made on the guidance on safe use. This document has been more structured, mainly taking into account the phrases and the pick list recommended by the guide on the UN recommendations on the transport of dangerous goods. We have also slightly updated the mixture composition. Now multiple countries can be selected at the same time, and we have updated the type of formulation and the function in this document. You will notice as well that impurities and additives have been removed and merged into a single repeatable field, which lists all the components of your mixture. Finally, on this mixture composition, we have also implemented the concept that are used for poison centers notification in EU, which are the interchangeable component group and the standard formula. We also did an update of all endpoint summaries to allow the provision of additional attachments. We have also moved documents that were exclusively used by the biocidal product regulation in EU, but that are now used more extensively by other users as well. And these documents are the technical characteristics of the product and the measures to protect humans, animals, and the environment. And finally, we have added a new endpoint summary to summarize all the information provided in the new OECD harmonized templates for phototoxicity. Looking at more specific parts of the format, you will see that changes were made in the format extension developed for EU regulations. For the REACH regulation first, we have updated some reasons for updates for REACH registrations, and we have also provided text templates for opt-out justifications. As far as the BPR is concerned, you will notice a new dossier type for BPR technical equivalence. Here, I would like to also mention that we are preparing a webinar dedicated to the use of Euclid for biocides users in Europe. So there will be more specific information for this group of users provided on the ECHA website in the coming weeks. Then specific extensions for the classification and labeling and packaging regulation in Europe. As I said, we have implemented for poison centers notification 2 new concepts, which are the interchangeable component group and standard formula component. For skip notifications, under the Waste Framework Directive in Europe, we have updated some elements of this notification format, mainly in the article document, where we have updated the pick list mainly, and we have updated also the dossier header. Finally, the plant protection product that was introduced last year has been completed now, and we are supporting in this new Euclid release the following submission types for active substance application, for chemicals and microorganisms, supporting also maximum residue limits applications and applications for basic substances. In total, 53 new documents were created to comply with the information requirements under the plant protection products legislation in Europe. Let's move to the changes made to comply with the information requirements in Australia. You can see that on the 1st of July in Australia, a new assessment scheme has replaced the previous one. It's now called ECHIS. There are 5 types of certificate applications that can be created by Euclid, and they are also checked by the validation assistant. You can see on the right side of your screen the list of specific Euclid documents created to support the Australian Industrial Chemicals Assessment Scheme. And then finally, New Zealand. There is also in New Zealand a HSNO Act to cover the hazardous substances that are imported or manufactured in New Zealand. And to support this work, new documents were designed first in the October 2019 release, and now as a second set of implementation in this October 2020 release. A set of 6 submission types have been created for substances and mixtures. And again, on the right side, you see the complete list of documents specifically created to support this work in New Zealand. That's all for the format changes in Euclid, and I will continue with some slides on the transition to the web interface, because outside the format changes, The main changes brought by this Euclid 6.5 release have been made at the level of the web interface. As we informed users about in the past webinars and on our Euclid website, initially we developed a web interface for basic chemical management, and this is what was made available since October 2018. Now in the release of last year, and this has been continued in October 2020, we have worked on the advanced chemical management, and we believe that with this Euclid 6.5 release, the web interface can be used also to perform advanced chemical information management. And the classic interface will still remain for some leftover advanced features until April 2021. And we are going also to provide some support in order for industry or all Euclid users to train their staff in preparation for working with only one interface. Here on this slide, you can see the remaining scope that had to be implemented in the web user interface. In green are the main features that are included in the October 2020 release. And on the right side of the screen, you can see the three main features that we are working on to be implemented in the April 2021 release. And with them, we will be able to complete the transition to the web user interface. So what does this transition mean for you? We'll see that in the next slide, but first I wanted to point to a survey that we have started at the end of September this year in order to assess the use of the web interface. In a previous survey we conducted at the beginning of the year, our main conclusions were that authorities are using the web interface predominantly, but there were still some data editors missing features, and we needed to promote the use of the web interface for users who are provided data inside Euclid. So now you will see in this Euclid 6.5 release that the classic interface is not available by default. And this is a major change that we have introduced in this Euclid 6.5 release in order to put more emphasis on the fact that the web interface is the only interface that will be supported in the future. However, if you need to access the classic interface for specific needs, for example, to manage users and roles, you can go to the Euclid website, and you will see on the Euclid website page that is indicated on this slide that you have a link to answer a survey to reach the instructions that will allow you to start using the classic interface with this latest release. So the survey is really easy to answer, and the main purpose, as I said, is for us to be aware of the reasons why you would still use the classic interface, and for us to prepare the best as possible the finalization of the web interface in the coming month. Once you get the instructions, after completing the survey, you don't need to repeat this procedure each time you want to access the classic interface. Once you have the instructions, you will be able to use the classic interface when needed with this new release. So we give you these instructions at the condition that you give us some information about why you need to use the classic interface still. And this is the timeline overview for this transition. You see that now we are in October 2020, and with this latest Euclid 6.5 release, the web interface is now the default, and the classic can be accessed on request. And the plan is by April 2021, and the release that will happen at that date, we will have only the web interface available in the Euclid release. Of course, with the information we gather in the different surveys and also your feedback, we will continue to provide support material to facilitate this transition. We are planning to add video tutorials to explain new features introduced recently. We will add also training materials to help larger companies train staff, but also to help specific group of users work with this Euclid web interface in a specific context. You will find on this page, learn to use the new interface, the latest version of the web interface functionalities manual. And if you have other ideas or feedback on the use of the web interface, please share them with us directly using the ECHA contact web form, or also using our LinkedIn group for Euclid. And that's all for the first part of this webinar. Now I will hand over to my colleague Mark Roberts, who will give you a demo of some key features introduced in the new release.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Roberts. I work in the Euclid team in the European Chemicals Agency, and today I wish to take you through the key highlights of the web interface with this version 6.5. The key highlights I will mention are the advanced import, printing and exporting in Euclid, the new table of contents for datasets, inbound references, additional advanced search for entities and dossiers, as well as bulk deletion and export. With these new features, almost all of Euclid's advanced features to manage chemical use administrative data are now available using the web interface. So the first feature I would like to take you through is the advanced import. When you arrive on the Euclid dashboard, which you see in front of you, you will see in the import box a new button called Advanced Import. If you click on this, your local file directory will appear, and you can from here select a Euclid file to import. I have one here ready to show you. This is a mixture Euclid file and therefore has many different components. To take you through this view, on the left hand side there's a list of entities available in this mixture file. There's the main mixture at the top, a number of components which are part of this mixture, as well as a reference substance and a couple of legal entities. I can choose to select various overwrite settings for each entity by selecting on this drop-down list. And I can choose to include or exclude any of the entities in the import file. For instance, I can exclude a reference substance if, for instance, I have this reference substance already in my database and I do not wish to overwrite it. On the right-hand side is a list of all the section documents for all the components of the mixture. So in this case, I'm already on the main mixture, and on the right-hand side are all the section documents for this main mixture. If I go to a component of the mixture, here, another set of section documents will appear. Again, like with the entities, you can choose to include or exclude any of these documents from your import, and you can deselect them or select them as you wish. With this import, I wish to replace all the existing entities that I have in my database, which I will do now, but I will still exclude the reference substance. And you can see when importing, this completes, and I can open the mixture file directly from the import widget. Okay, moving on. The next feature I would like to show you is the new table of contents. Just to show you before I do that, using the web interface, you can bookmark your substances or mixtures to quickly access them instead of going through the list view. So for instance, here in my substance list, I have 10 substances, but I have bookmarked one of them here in the web browser settings, and I can click on it to go directly there. Okay, I'm now in my test substance I wish to use today for this demonstration. You will see that that this screen is very much similar to the previous version, except for one thing. We have now changed the wording of submission type to working context. The working context helps us to manage and view the data better by associating a draft dossier header with the working context and associating a context, for instance, a regulatory context, for you, which then defines the information requirements for that regulatory context. The working context also helps us to show custom views of documents, for instance, under the Poison Center notification scheme. And it also allows us to show customized views of sub table of contents for mixture components. So the working context has now expanded the customization possibilities when viewing Euclid data. So if I go into one of these documents, let's say the identification document, you'll notice a very different view than before. Before, you only saw the main document view. Now, on the left-hand side, our new table of contents can be seen. Before I go to the table of contents, just to note that some of the actions and operations in this view are now available in this view as well. You can select the working context you're working in here. You can view dossiers, you can validate your data or create dossiers from your data set. So some of these actions are available directly from this view now. So to the main point here, which is the new table of contents. In the new table of contents, you will find that this helps you to navigate and manage your data much better than before. The first thing I would like to show is that at the top node here, you can manage your draft dossier header and edit this data through this view. The second point is that when you go into any section, you will be able to see any so-called outbound references from a section document. So for instance, here in my identification document, I have linked to this an ECHA legal entity and a reference substance, as well as another legal entity as a third party legal entity. And I can do any of these I wish by just clicking on the link there, and then go directly to the reference substance and edit this information. The next thing is that you can directly inline create new documents from this table of contents. For instance, if I wish to create a new 1.3 identifier, I can click on the plus sign, new document, and add that there. I can also delete documents. I can delete this identifiers document if I wish. The next thing to show about this new table of contents is that I can move documents up and down. For instance, here in the composition, if I wish to move composition 1 above composition 2, I can drag and drop it and the composition will change. There's a bit of a delay there. Okay, there's composition 1 on top. So this new table of contents, you can navigate and manage your data much more easily. And the last thing in this table of contents is that directly from here, you can add inherited templates. If I click on the change sign here and add a template, this then will be added and all the documents from that template will be visible within this dataset. And finally, what I wish to show you about the inherited templates is that if I go to an inherited template document within this dataset, for instance, here in the composition, I have an inherited composition record. A warning will appear to notify users that they're working on a shared template that other users may be using and may be shared with other data sets, and that if they are going to change data, this may be affecting other data sets and other users. Next, I wish to show you a new feature for the advanced settings for printing. So if I go to a composition document, let's say this first one here, and click on the 3 dots, I have 2 options for printing. I can create a PDF of the document itself. This is only the composition document. Or I can create a component PDF, which will give me not only this composition document, but all section documents under the parent entity of my test substance. So let's go first of all to create a document PDF. This should be a familiar view for any of you who are using the web interface. These are the typical advanced settings you are presented with when you are wishing to include or exclude certain information from data you're exporting or creating a PDF from. So for instance, you can include annotations or a legal entity. By default, these are not included. You can include or exclude certain fields, for instance, confidential fields. And you can also include or exclude fields which are flagged with certain confidentiality flags or regulatory program flags. and then you can hit create PDF and you'll get the PDF of the document. The second option is when you can create a component PDF. This presents you with the same set of choices, but you can also hit to select documents to be included. And then this will give you the chance to include or exclude certain documents and entities from the component PDF. For instance, on the left-hand side, as we saw with the advanced imports, you have a list of entities. You can choose to include or exclude these as you wish. Note here that, for instance, this particular substance is linked to a category. And as that is part of the component, it's listed here as something to print. So if you do not wish to print the category, I can deselect it there. Now, a category can be using, can have members from across the database from other substances. And so when deselecting this, a number of other substances are automatically grayed out in mixtures too, because these are being used by the category. On the right-hand side, I can, like with the advanced import, include or exclude certain documents. Okay, now I will go back to the previous view we were in. Here, I'd like to show you a couple of new advanced features. The first being when exporting NICE this view was previously available, but now, as we've just shown, you can also decide to include or exclude your various section documents and entities from the export of the IUCLID file. So here, again, if I do not wish to include the category in my export, I can exclude it, and all the associated entities to that category will also be deselected. I can, for instance, deselect all my legal entities. I can also deselect the inherited template if I wish. And on the right-hand side, I can select or deselect the various sections. The next thing I wish to show you is the bulk copy. This was previously available, but has been expanded to include the ability to bulk copy from dossiers. So if I wish to bulk copy from a dossier all its section documents, I can do that with this feature. So if I select dossiers, and I, for instance, decide to bulk copy a mixture, I then get a list of all the components of that mixture, because all these components will contain different sets of endpoints and documents. And then from here, I can then select or deselect what I wish to copy. For instance, in this one, I only have a GHS document. If I go back to this one, this has additional endpoints, which I can copy into my data set. Remember that for bulk copy, the working context you are in this case, for this substance, I'm in a reach above 10 tons working context. This will be reflected in the bulk copy. So only the documents which are compatible and can fit into the working context which I'm in are shown in this display of the bulk copy. Okay, I'm going to go back to the list of substances. Before we didn't get to see this because I went directly to the substance from my bookmark, but my substance is also in this list of substances. The next thing I wish to show you is a new bulk feature to export in bulk your substances, or mixtures, or any other entity, and or delete in bulk an entity such as this list of substances here. So if I click on the left-hand side, I can export or delete in bulk these substances. If I click export here, I will get the advanced options as before, but note that I can't select particular section documents as there are more than one substance being exported. I can also delete these if I wish. To show you another new feature that has now been implemented, if I wish to delete this first substance, you'll notice that as before in the classic interface, if this substance is being used by another entity, the deletion can't take place. So if I hit delete now, I will get a message saying that there are certain inbound references to this test substance, and I cannot delete it before I decouple or break the link between this test substance and the entities which are using it. So I can, from this view, go into the inbound references for my test substance. And from here, I can start doing the work to decouple the entities. So you can see here that my test substance is being used by category. So if I go into the category and go to the category members, I can see that here my test substance is a member. If I remove this and save, the view will be updated and I can proceed with the deletion. Next, I would like to show you another addition or enhancement to an existing feature, but important for the advanced management of your chemical data. In the Dossiers tab in the Substances view, and also for the for dossiers and mixtures, you will now be able to use the advanced search to search for your dossiers. For example, in the dossier name, if I wish to search for all the updated, all the dossiers which I have used as an update, I can search for that through the dossier name if, of course, I put update as part of that dossier name. So if I search, I've got 3 dossiers which have been found through the dossier name. I can also search via the dossier submission type. I can, for instance, search for reach 1 to 10 tons. And then I alight on my final dossier I'm searching for, which is an update and for this particular submission type. Okay, as we're on the subject of searching, we can now also see another enhancement to the search criteria, which is the update to the search criteria for simple entities as well as categories and templates. So if I go to a reference substance, which is a simple entity, it does not have any section documents. It's a set of fields identifying a substance or a mixture component. And I wish to search for a particular reference substance, I can use the advanced search to do that. This set of criteria has been based on user feedback we have received on how best to search for the various entities we have in Euclid. So for instance, if I wish to search for a CAS number, if I know it begins with 8050, for instance, I can put a wildcard and hit search, and I get the one reference substance which has this CAS number. And likewise for all the other fields as well. To show you just another example, if I go to the literature references, this also has a number of different search fields to search for an appropriate literature reference. For instance, if I wish to search for an author, I can put a name and put wildcards around this, search, and I can find the literature reference that has this author as part of its data. Okay, next I'd like to move on back to the inbound references that we saw before when trying to delete a substance and viewing the inbound references. To do this, I've bookmarked a particular document, a manufacturer document here in the top of my web browser. So if I hit this, I will go back to my test substance and in particular the manufacturer document of that test substance. Here in this manufacturer document, I've referenced 2 composition documents. Now, when making reference from a manufacturer document, I can see what I've made reference to by going to the field and viewing these particular documents, which is all well and good. However, when I'm in a composition document, I don't know at first sight which other documents are making reference to this document. So to do this, we use the concept of inbound references. So if you go to the I in the top right-hand corner and select this, you will see what documents are making reference to the composition. This is appropriate for all documents in Euclid, so you'll be able to see any inbound reference for any document. This is just an example with the composition. And if I click on the inbound reference, I can go directly there in the sliding window in case I want to, for instance, decouple the reference by removing it here. Okay, that is all I wish to show you today of the new features in Euclid. I would like to pass on to my colleague Tommy Haag, who will speak about the ECHA Cloud Services and Euclid. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Tom Haag and I work in the Euclid team here in ECHA. Now you have been learning about the changes that has been coming into Euclid 6 version 5, and you have seen the new changes in the web user interface. For the remainder of the webinar, I will present the ECHA Cloud Services, and I will talk about some other impacting things as well. First of all, I would like to remind you about the different distributions of Euclid that ECHA is offering. Keeping in mind that there is only one Euclid software, so it's always the same Euclid that we have, but we have different ways of distributing it. We have the desktop version that is mainly used by single users to be installed on their local machines. We have the server, mainly used by bigger organizations where they install it on a server, and then the same database is shared by multiple users. But starting from 2018, we also have the cloud distribution, which is in the ECHA Cloud Services, where we host by ECHA, only for reach, CLP, and skip usage. We offer a Euclid distribution. So in the ECHA Cloud Service, in the Euclid Cloud Services, we're offering two different types of services. We're offering the Euclid Cloud, which is free to use, where we take the backup. It is up and running 24/7, and it offers 1 GB of disk space to be used. Of course, we always update it to the newest versions of Euclid whenever these are released. Quite often we release these 4 times per year, where the downloadable and server version is only updated twice a year. Related to this release, we updated the existing instances on the 28th of October as well. One additional thing with the cloud is that there is a seamless submission of PCN and skip dossiers implemented, so there is no need to export and import them when you're submitting them. The legal entity is a bit different than in the other Euclids, because here it is synchronized with the login. So when you create your ECHA accounts and you subscribe to use the Euclid Cloud, the legal entity information will be synchronized there. If you want to change your address, it is recommended that you go to the ECHA account and change your address, and it will be then synchronized again to the legal entity. Other legal entities can, of course, be created in Euclid, but you need to keep track of what is the master legal entity, because this will be added to the dossier when you create it then afterwards. We also want to make marketing for the foreign user concept that we have in the ECHA accounts, which allows for companies to give access to users that doesn't really belong to their company, but want to work on their behalf, like consultants or big conglomerates, where you have everything done from one big company. We also offer another service, which is called the Euclid Cloud Trial. The trial is, as the name says, it's supposed to be used for testing the service. It's also free to use. We don't take any backups, and we limit the database size to 100 megabytes, because the idea is that you test, you try, and then you dismiss the use of it. We also updated the existing instances to the new version on the 28th of October. And this is something where we, for example, in the situation where you are used to be using the classical interface of Euclid, and you now would want to start preparing yourself for the imminent change to the web user interface, and you don't want to do that in your production environment, it might be a good idea to, for example, use the Euclid Cloud Trial to organize testing and training sessions for you and your users. Also in the cloud services, we are running the submission services. The submission services that we're running is called ECHA Submission Portal. The submission portal is used to submit and follow up PCN and skip dossiers only. So it's to be kept in mind that you cannot submit REACH IT, biocide, or any other types of dossier here. The speciality with the submission portal is that it's scalable. You can submit much more higher volumes of dossiers, and it allows dossiers also to be submitted from other systems in a way that we call system-to-system submission. We also offer a trial service for the submission portal that can be used in order to test both the manual submissions and the system-to-system submissions. We recommend to go and have a look and read on the PCN and SKIP websites to get more information about the usage of these submission services. One note to be kept in mind is that the ECHA submission portal will integrate the submission of the European Food Safety Agency's pesticidal dossiers in the year 2021. So before ending the webinar, we want to highlight still some other small issues. First of all, the SKIP. Euclid support for the SKIP database. Within this release of Euclid, we updated the SKIP format with minor changes. The article category list was updated, some fields was removed, and some fields was made not mandatory. Please go to the website for more information about that one. We are happy to announce that the SKIP notification can now be submitted to the production system, started from the 28th of October, and the obligation to notify will start on the 5th of January 2021. The SKIP team will organize a webinar on the 19th of November, and we recommend that you go to the SKIP to the ECHA webpage and the webinar section, and you log in to reserve a place for this webinar as well. As always, for more information about the SKIP, please consult the web pages at echa.europa.eu/skip. Euclid also supports PCN, as you know. Now for this version, the format was updated to comply with the amendments to Annex 8. The standard Euclid user interface has been improved to support the creation of the PCN dossiers, in addition to the guided dossier approach. And the PCN team already held a webinar on the 4th of November 2020, and the recording is already available on the ECHA YouTube channel. For more information about the PCN part, please go to the Poison Center website at poisoncenters.echa.europa.eu, and they also have a LinkedIn group for more information. One thing that ECHA gets a lot of questions about now during the last half years, mainly relevant for the PCN and SKIP data preparation, is how to create dossiers out of your own systems to benefit from the system-to-system submissions. And the way that this can be done is that there are two options. One option is to build a custom script that generates the Euclid files according to the defined format. It means that independent ISIC set files are generated that represent the full dataset and dossiers. It might feel a bit complex due to the additional administrative technical data like the manifest XML file that binds the package of data files together into a deliverable dossier. The inventory document, like for example, reference substances that are reused, must be linked in all of the different ISIC set files, which also makes it a bit complex to build because you have to think about the structural way of creating. You first have to create the reference substance so that you can link it then in the document that you are generating. Also, manual verification is complex and it's recommended to manually import the files to a local Euclid installation in order to validate the format and validation rules to avoid submitting files that will not pass and will fail later on. Another way of creating dossiers for your own system is to build a custom script that writes into the Euclid instance by using the Euclid's public REST API. By doing that, it's a bit easier to reuse inventory documents, but of course the inventory documents has to be created as well. It's easier to test as the data is generated directly inside the Euclid instance, so it can be manually followed to be looked what is happening. And but also as a negative point, it's since the document has to be created individually, one per transaction, it could be harder to build a full dossier where you need to integrate a lot of documents. But that's something that can be done by analyzing the different options. More information about this can be found in our I6 documentation, which is called Developer's Guide for the Euclid 6 for the Euclid I6 format, and the API documentation that has been updated for the 6.5 release, available from the Euclid web page, euclid6.eccha.europa.eu/public-API. We also want to remind you that the REACH study results has been updated. Now our target is to update them twice a year. So non-confidential data collected under REACH by ECHA is made available in a Euclid format. It was refreshed on the 3rd of September. And it includes now 23,000 substances. There's a full list available in the Excel file if you go to the Euclid website. 250 new substances compared to the previous update in March of 2020. And you can download it from the Euclid website as a set of Euclid 6 dossiers. What's happening next in the release of Euclid 6.5? So Euclid 6 development will continue with 2 main releases for next year. The first one is the one in April. And the main objective for the April release is to decommission the classic interface. We've said it many times in this webinar, but now is the time for you to get using the web user interface in order to learn it and to see and come back to us with issues that you might have with using it. As always, we have the second release in October, and in October we are including format changes that has been collected from the different requirements over the year. Additional releases will be made in the cloud services as needed to support the PCN, SCIP, and EFSA users if needed. Last year we had a release in January and one in July, and there's a potential that we do the same this year as well. That was everything we wanted to share for the webinar. Remember that the Slido event will continue during the day of the premiere of the webinar. So please go over to Slido and ask your questions, and we will answer everything that you can come on up with. As the last thing, I would like to remind you of the Euclid LinkedIn group. For those who are not yet members of it, go and have a look at it, join it. There's a lot of interesting discussion happening there, and many people have been able to get their small issues solved quickly by the support of other community members or by ECHA support teams instead of causing it a big issue. So thank you very much. Have a nice day and see you later.